And good evening. I'm Jonathan Higgins.
And I'm Rich Carlson.
And we are the Scanner Guys, and we're live this evening from coast to coast and worldwide. Baseball season is finally started, Rich. Can you believe it?
You betcha. My first place Cubbies.
Yeah, and I have got the Boston Red Sox in full swag here.
Have they won a game yet this year?
I don't know. I haven't, I'm of course in the Carolinas, so I don't get to see the games. But it's weird. I've seen a couple of games, on the news, and it's weird to be able to see the games taking place with no audience.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching some of it online, and it's just weird. Or have you seen the ones with the cardboard cutouts?
Yes, that $45 each, I guess, or something. And I did see a game with a cardboard cutout. They had, all the family members plus the dog. It's kind of cool to be able to see that.
Yeah. And some of the games have been having virtual crowds inserted with CGI. So you see a home run go, but everybody's just standing there. Nobody's jumping up for it. It's just, they're just standing there.
Yeah, and then you've heard that they piped in some of the sound for the players, because that's going to be eerie too. Not to have any sound whatsoever. They've been pumping in some white noise sound and so on. I think that also the other thing that I was talking to someone about it is you need that, because a lot of times they'll drop the F-bomb.
Yeah.
And with the audience in the stadium, you won't hear it. You hear those mics that they have. You hear the ball, hitting the glove, and it's crystal clear. Can you imagine if the stadium's completely silent? You could literally probably hear conversations.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've been hearing it. The best ones are now with the arguments. The manager comes out to yell at the umpire, and you can hear every word. Sometimes you don't want to hear that stuff.
I'm sure somebody's sitting on the button.
Yeah, you got to turn my audio up. Apparently, my audio is a little low.
I can't do that. You have to do that on your end.
I'll do that myself. All right, hopefully that'll work.
Yeah, I have, with our new system, that's all on you. So if your audio is not up, that's your studio. So you better.
I cranked my audio up on my mic. Hopefully that'll help.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you pretty loud and clear over here through the headphones this evening. What was the other thing that we were going to talk about? We were talking about baseball, and then there was something else. Oh, SDSs.
Yeah.
So there is some in inventory, right, Rich?
We have some of the SDS 200s in stock right now. We don't have any of the SDS 100s right now, but we do have a few of the SDS 200s. They came in just the last yesterday afternoon, and we sold about 2/3 of the ones that we have. We have a few left, so if you want an SDS 200, grab it now, because they're going to be gone by this time tomorrow, and we are still waiting on the SDS 100s.
Yeah, so that is crazy, with the supply chain being interrupted by COVID-19. This is really quite interesting. Like we're oops, hold on one second. Got to plug in. I'm actually running out of power over here, and I don't want to go down during the live broadcast. So yeah, definitely pick up your SDS 200, because they're a hot commodity right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of our scanners are in very short supply right now, and for several reasons. Obviously, there's a supply chain disruption going on with all this nonsense, and there's a huge demand for scanners, especially the better digital ones.
Well, people are bored, like some people are still working it from home, or they may have a little bit more extra time. You think of it, other than NASCAR, there really hasn't been a lot of sporting things on television. It's starting to slowly come back. So people, they probably went through, they binge watched a whole bunch of Hulu or Netflix.
Yeah, I reached the end of Netflix yesterday, so now I'm working through Hulu.
Yeah.
And plus, with all the civil unrest going on in some of the cities, people want to buy scanners to listen to what's going on there, because it's exciting to listen to. So, all that stuff going on, and the supply is very limited.
Very limited, that's for sure. So this evening, speaking of scanners, of course, we always have a scanner topic. And tonight we're going to be talking about the FCC and RadioReference. I mean, frequency searches, which is a very important aspect of our hobby. So if you know there's some changes coming to your local city, town, or county, or state, and you want to get ahead of it and see if you can see the license and the frequencies they're using, this is the best way to do it. Even some business frequencies as well. So if you're curious about anything that's transmitting licensed, whether it be businesses, public safety, the FCC is your friend, to be able to look up those licenses and try to figure out, what's going on. And as always, the Scanner Guys are brought to you by Scanner Master this evening. So let's
Scanner Master. Who are those guys?
Yeah, who are those guys? So we sold a good number of shirts. We want to thank everyone that purchased the shirt, the Scanner Guys t-shirts. Thank you so much. They should be shipping out soon. So that's really awesome that they'll be shipping out soon. So be on the lookout for that if you ordered one. And we'll be excited to get ours because we'll be able to wear ours in the on the air here while we're live, and of course we'll have something to wear when we're in Dayton as well. So let's see here. We'll continue on.
I'm looking forward to my t-shirt, so I can't wait to get it.
Yeah, me too. A big announcement. We've booked our first guest, Rich. Isn't that right?
That's right. This is going to be a lot of fun.
So Phil from the Scanner School will be joining us on Wednesday, August the 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So we're looking forward to that. That's going to be very exciting. Also, we were on his podcast as well. That will be dropping soon. We'll let you know when that'll be dropping. Little Bird has told me that it could be August the 11th. So there'll be a Scanner Guys and Scanner School week with the cross promotion of the two shows. So Phil will be talking about how he started the Scanner School and we'll learn how he got into this hobby. He's also a ham radio operator as well. So other than me, but the two of you have that in common.
Yeah.
Whoa, you're really loud now.
Yeah, is my mic any better now than it was before?
It's extremely loud.
Okay. I went to the
You got
webcam mic. I can't. I'm on the webcam mic now. I'm not on the let me go back to the other mic. We're still getting complaints about my mic being down, so.
Yeah, I can't do anything about that. Holy Toledos. If anybody has soiled themselves, we apologize. Holy crap.
All right. Yeah, I can see how the level is low. So,
yeah, maybe you could. Jeez, that woke me up. Wow.
All right, is that any better, guys? Hopefully that'll be better.
That's better. Yeah. Holy crap! Apparently, Ray you blew his speakers.
Sorry, Ray.
What do you say? You're not going to get this radio up and down the dial? What do you normally
That's
say?
Right.
Holy crap!
Woo!
Woo! You can tell we're live.
Yeah.
Oh, David says he can hear you now.
Yeah, he can probably hear me through his fillings.
I'm sure his neighbors can hear you too. I got headphones on, so you guys are listening to this through speakers. You woke up Forrest's dog.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my cat can hear me now, and he's been dead for 6 years.
Oh man. All right.
Anyway,
Back to work. So Phil's going to be on with us. Hopefully mics won't be hot or loud. During that show. So we'll continue on here. So let's get to our main topic here: frequency searches with RadioReference. All right, Mike.
I'm Rich. That's the Mike. You're Jonathan.
Okay.
And we're the Scanner Guys.
We're the Scanner Guys. Okay. So let's make sure your mic's working right. So why don't you tell us about this first slide, Rich?
All right. So, you need to be able to use both the FCC and the radio reference database if you're really serious about the hobby. So these databases, they hold thousands and thousands of records, and they're the best source of information for frequencies around. The radio reference database is a great, fantastic tool, but it works better when you can also use the FCC database for certain things. If you know how to search through them, it'll help you find the new stuff to listen to and help you identify what you found, other things that you found, or fill in the blanks. You find all these channels and you want to find the other one. These databases will help you.
That's for sure. They will certainly help you. And Radio Reference, we use all the time here at Scanner Master. I mean, we literally, Rich and I basically live on Radio Reference. I mean, it's a tool that we use every single day. When someone calls up over the phone, we usually have it up on one screen. And what county are you?
Yeah.
What state are you in? What are you trying to listen to?
What's your zip code? Yeah, I spend probably more time on the radio reference page than I do on our own page.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a valued tool to be able to figure out what scanner, you need. Let's say someone's getting into the hobby. We need to kind of do some research on there. And that's the great thing about it. And Radio Reference is great for finding new frequencies, new trunk systems.
Yeah, and one of the things I do is I'll go through and I'll just kind of look at stuff and look at different towns in the area or the neighboring county and say, hey, you know what? I've never heard that frequency before. And I'll pop it in the radio and I'll leave it there until I hear something on it. And I can verify the PL tone that's there or the talk group number or what have you. And just, you never know what you're going to hear. And put in oddball stuff that you've never heard before and see if you can hear them.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to listen to. I know when I was a kid, I had a hard time trying to find the taxi stand that was in, in the town that I grew up in. And then I finally was able to get the frequency. But I mean, it was actually licensed under the owner of the taxi stand. That's why I couldn't find it. It wasn't licensed under the business name. It was licensed under the owner of the taxi stand.
So it was Bill, not Bill's Taxi, but Bill himself, huh?
No, it was Superior Cab was the name of the Superior Cab was the name of the cab company, and it was Morris the Longchamps, which was the he's probably passed away by now.
Yeah.
He was up in age, when I was listening to them. So if you're a relative of him and you're watching this, well,
tell him you said hi.
Tell him said hi, but I think he's passed away by now. But I mean, the FCC database, that's how, once I was able to get the frequency, I did one of those reverse searches on the frequency. And then I could see, this is why I couldn't find it, because it was licensed under Morris the Longchamps. It wasn't licensed under Superior Cab. Yeah,
and when you do stuff like that, you might be able to then find their cab-to-cab channel or their other channels, or if they run cabs in multiple areas, they might find the other one. Same thing with any other business or even a police or fire department. You find a frequency, you don't know who it is, you look in the database, you figure out who it is, and now you say, okay, they also have this frequency. Maybe I'll start listening to that, and you might find their super secret tech channel or something like that.
I mean, it's an amazing tool. So we'll continue on with our slideshow. So here's a really good description here on this slide. What is the difference between the FCC and Radio Reference? Radio Reference is a database that only has information reported that is verified by its users. Some of these records are obsolete, but for the most part, in use as listed. So that's the cool thing. You're going to see so many things in the FCC database, some of which may not be in use, right, Rich?
Yeah. The thing is with the Radio Reference database is that they are they have been reported as in use and verified, but sometimes those channels may lapse and they maybe get superseded by some other channel that may move off of it. So there could be channels in that database that were used at one time but aren't used anymore.
Like a lot of people, like the Mass State Police low band, for example.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't monitor that. That's still in use, and it's still listed on Radio Reference. But a lot of
Right.
people thought, yeah, they went to the 800 megahertz trunking system. No longer on the low band. If you look at every Massachusetts State Police vehicle, it has that low band whip. Every one of those radios,
Yep.
every one of those cars have a low band radio in it. So. And they're still using it. So the FCC is a database that consists of licenses obtained by its users. Many of those are not in use, and that's
Right.
what I was trying to. I think I misworded that when I did that little portion of it, but that's what I meant. Is the FCC? A lot of cities or towns do that. That's a cool thing that you can do tonight after the broadcast. Go to the FCC database and put in the name of your city and town into the search. You're going to see a plethora of these frequencies, and they're not even in use. They may be interesting to program just to see if they have occasional use. But, like the little town that I'm in that's got less than 4,000 people, they have several frequencies licensed that they're not even using.
Well, the thing is with FCC licensing is that they get licenses for frequencies, and oftentimes they've either never used them or they never bother to cancel the license after they've moved off to a new system. So where I used to work, we had a whole bunch of VHF and UHF channels, and when they switched over to Starcom, the original plan was to keep the UHF channels as a backup. But then they decided at the end they didn't want to do that because they didn't want to maintain two radio systems and keep the other radios in the cars and stuff. So they went and ripped out all the UHF radios from the vehicles and from they took out the repeaters. They took out all the infrastructure from the old UHF stuff, but they're still licensed now. And I've talked to them, say, hey, you should cancel these licenses. But they say, nah, we won't worry about it in case we need it later. But they're never going to use those channels again, but those licenses are still there. And now that I'm not there any longer, chances are when they get the renewal in the mail, they're just going to go ahead and renew it, not knowing what to do with it. And you'll see that in a lot of places.
Because they don't know the FCC, the call sign of that frequency. They're just going to assume, oh, we got this, we need to renew it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a renewal, just sign it off. And for public safety frequencies, there's no charge to renew the license. You don't have to pay for that. So just to renew a license is free. So they're just going to keep on renewing it.
Yeah, there's no reason to question it.
Exactly. And so there's no audit trail. So there's a lot of stuff in the FCC database that has been expired or not expired, but the use of it is they're no longer being used, but the licenses are still there.
I think I gave the example either last week or a couple of weeks ago. The little town that my wife grew up in Maine. The town actually let their FCC license lapse they have one frequency where the police and the fire share. Mm-hmm. They let it lapse so long that eventually when they went into county dispatching and they still use the local frequency, somebody must have been saying, hey, we're using this frequency and we're not licensed on it. So somebody must have, updated the license for it because I mean, I can't get over that after you telling me that it's a free thing to renew and they did, and somebody dropped the ball clearly there because it's just a simple thing. It doesn't cost anything.
Well, we had another situation with another agency that I was helping out. They were looking for a new frequency for their fire department. And we went searching for a frequency, and I found a frequency that there were no licenses for it. And so we put up a receiver on that just to see if anybody was using it. And over a 2-week period, we found a lot of use on it. We figured out who the agency was, and they had never had a license for that frequency, but yet they were using it as their car-to-car or truck-to-truck channel. So we got them the license. We got the license for it for our agency, and then sent a letter to that other agency say, you can't use it. You don't have a license, and you're causing interference to us. We are licensed. And they left.
Oh, that's good. I was wondering how they would handle that because it's very easy once you're licensed on the illegal to operate. So you can basically tell them to shove off.
Yeah, and there was a comment from Alicia, which is a very good comment here. The input frequencies often use the same call sign as the output frequency. Not always, though. That, as a rule of thumb, they do, but it used to be that they would have separate call signs for mobile inputs than the output. Nowadays, almost all the time, they are the same call sign, but there are still some places left over where the input frequencies are in a different call sign. But that's, as a rule of thumb, you're right, Alicia.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing, the stuff that we're able to learn just by looking at the database.
Yep.
Let's continue on. So input frequencies are not always easy to figure out in the FCC database, but they are easy to identify in RadioReference.
Right. So on RadioReference, there is, when you're looking at the database, there's a click box on the RadioReference database to show input frequencies. And if you click on that, then you can see what the input frequency is to the repeater. Now on UHF and 800, it's no big deal because it's just a math thing. On UHF, the repeater input is either 5 megahertz or 3 megahertz away from the output frequency most of the time. But on VHF channels, the input frequency could be almost anything. So instead of being 3 megahertz apart or 5 megahertz apart, it could be just whatever frequency was available because there was no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get you where that's coming from. When it's like that, you can't really predict the pattern.
Right.
The other thing that RadioReference has where the FCC does not, PL tones and etc. are not on the FCC database, and modes are not easy to figure out as well as they are indicated on the RadioReference database. And that's right. I mean, you're not going to see PL tones and, I mean, you can see some coding for what type of digital format, but it doesn't scream at you P25 or DMR or any of those formats. It's not screaming at you on RadioReference. It's clear.
Yeah. On the FCC database, you can find out the mode that they're licensed for, which is usually the mode that they're actually using, but not always. But and sometimes they'll have multiple modes licensed. So when I was doing the license, we were licensed for both analog and P25 on these channels. And we used P25 only rarely, but most of the time was all analog. But in order to find the mode, you have to go 3-4 extra clicks on the FCC database in order to find it. And then it's in a code. Now you got to figure out what that code means. 16F1Z38 or something like that. And you're like, what does that mean?
It's so easy on RadioReference. You can just scan your eye down the line with a conventional channel, and you can see all the information, what type of mode they're in, the frequency, the PL tone, the input, just by clicking on that option at the top of the page. Right. I mean, it's super easy. I mean, the FCC is, it's doing its thing. It's, more for, keeping track of licenses and keep them to public knowledge. It's not used as, your handy dandy police guide, police frequency guide. Right.
Yeah. And there was also another comment about the old police call books, and the police call directories that they've stopped doing, about 10 years ago now, had all this information. And that was the database that people would use back in the day because there was no internet, or it wasn't what it is now. So,
yeah, it certainly has came a long way. So let's continue on with the slideshow. So general rules, Rich. We'll bounce back and forth on this. You want to take the first bullet point?
Sure. So when you're doing a search, especially in the FCC database, when you do a search, the more stuff you put in, the less stuff you're going to get out. And that's the way it's supposed to work. So if you just put in a frequency, you're going to get all the licenses on that frequency. If you put in the frequency and a state, now you're going to get all the licenses on that frequency within that state. If you put in the frequency, the state, and the city, now you're going to get all the licenses on that frequency within that state in that city. So the more stuff you put in, the less you've got coming out.
You're narrowing down that search. You can run it wide open. I mean, the good thing about running it wide open is if someone is on that frequency in your city or town that you want to see who is interfering with them from a distance, if you're getting
Yep.
some signal skip, then you can run that wide open. But if you're trying to
Yeah.
fine tune it, yeah, more
Yep.
information is better. And we kind of covered this bullet point. Business license searches can be more difficult since the parent company may not be unknown or it may be in a different city or state.
Right.
Superior Cab was an example. Morris the Longchamps was the license name. Another thing that I used to listen to was the bus company, the school bus company. And First Student, I think, is the name of one of the major bus companies around the country. And a lot of times they're licensed on a frequency, but they're not using it in that city or town that it's in. They're
Yeah.
using it somewhere else. So if you did like a First Student FCC search under that business name for your state, you would get so many frequencies, and it's hard to narrow it down too.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, especially on business operations, with the parent company could be totally different today. I was trying to search out a mining company which operates about 30 or 40 miles from here, and I was having a heck of a time trying to find them, and I just could not find them at all. And finally, I went up to the area and I close called, and I got a frequency they were using, and I put that frequency in for Arizona. No licenses in Arizona. So I put that frequency in nationwide, and there were 7 licenses nationwide on that frequency. And one of them was a company I had no clue what this was. I clicked on it, and it turned out it was a holding company. And one of the companies that they owned was the mining company. So the license was owned by Smith Company, but the mining company was named Jones. And and eventually I was able to figure it out that way. So that's why we're going to talk about in an upcoming slide. There's a couple different FCC search portals that you can use. One is great for public safety, and one is better for business because you're going to be able to start doing a site search. When you're doing a license search, oftentimes you're going to get a request for a state, and the license holder may not be in that state.
Yeah, it was very interesting. We kind of covered this last bullet point. The radio reference database only has verified operations, which we kind of covered. And then the FCC database contains licensed operations. And they also have pending, if I remember correctly, pending, and they do display some of the expired licenses, which is kind of helpful as well for those agencies that let things lapse.
Yeah, and they'll also have some stuff is listed as canceled. So you can actually cut down your responses, and there's a button on there you can click for active licenses only. So you can eliminate any of the old, canceled, or expired licenses.
Rich, I'll let you take the next bullet point here.
Okay, so some of the operations are not verified. So they won't be in radio reference, or they're not licensed, so they wouldn't be in the FCC database. So like the examples that we had before, the agency that never had a license for the frequency, or that license has expired a long time ago and no longer be in the database, you won't find them on FCC, but they may very well be in radio reference even if they're not licensed. They don't have to be licensed to be in the radio reference, they just have to be in use.
Yeah, they need some verification by its users. And those of you that are not familiar with Radio Reference or how it operates, all those people that work the database are all volunteers. So they're users in your local area that are maintaining the database. And a lot of times that information is submitted by people just like you or I that are out there. They hear something on the scanner, or they find a frequency that's not listed. So what they'll do is they'll send in all the information that's required from Radio Reference, and then that Radio Reference administrator for that area will then verify it. And then once it's verified, then they'll post it.
Yeah, and we happen to know very well how all that part works because we're both database administrators, and so we get to see how the radio reference database works behind the scenes, and that is a really fascinating setup that they have there, and it's extremely useful, and it works very well.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have their act together there. That's why they're one of they're the lead website when it comes to scanning.
Hmm.
Things like FRS, CB, Marine aircraft are often licensed by rule. So many of those are not listed in the FCC database. These frequencies
Right.
are allotted to those particular bands.
Yeah. So if you are a GMRS licensee, your license is in the FCC database, but the frequencies that you operate are not individually listed. It's just that you have a license in the GMRS and you can use any of the GMRS frequencies. FRS, CB, Marine, and most aircraft channels, they are usually not licensed individually anymore, anyway. And so any of those frequencies, you don't have to have a hold of license, and the FCC calls that licensed by rule. You have a license to use it because you are in the U.S. And that's how how it works. There are some marine and aircraft licenses out there for fixed operations for very specific reasons, but an individual aircraft can use any of the aviation frequencies because they may have to use one frequency to talk to the tower at this airport and another frequency to talk to the tower at that airport. So instead of having a license for all 720 aviation frequencies, they are licensed by rule because they have an aircraft in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, that's really cool stuff to kind of think about. I mean, it'd be crazy if Delta Airlines or one of those carriers had a license for every single one of those frequencies. That'd be
Yeah.
crazy.
Oh yeah, it's just crazy. And they did the same thing when they got rid of CB licenses. If you're old enough to remember the old days when you actually had to have a license for CB, KALK 5934 was my call sign back when I was it was my dad's call sign because I wasn't old enough to have one. And you used to actually have a license for CB, and they would actually check it on occasion. But they got rid of CB licenses, I don't know, back in the Good Buddy days, and they are no longer required. Again, they're licensed by rule.
Hmm. And general frequencies or systems like CB, marine channels, etc., may not be in the main radio reference database, but they can be found in the wiki. Yeah,
Yep.
you're not going to see that in every single county. People are clearly
Yeah.
using those CB channels or those marine channels. You're not going to see it listed everywhere. I mean, it's
Right.
like you said, it's licensed by rule, so it doesn't need to be listed everywhere in the database.
Yeah, exactly. And there might be occasionally where there's a channel that is of particular interest and has some special use in a specific area that might be in the main database. But for the most part, those type of things are not going to be in the main database.
All right. So let's kind of dive into this. We actually took some screenshots of some of the pages that you'll see in the FCC. Now, if you want to do some of these FCC frequency searches, everybody clearly knows the URL for Radio Reference. It's radioreference.com. But these FCC database links are listed this evening in the description of this broadcast on YouTube. So if you want to do that after the broadcast, it's down below the video if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're watching us on your TV, just visit YouTube and then go to our YouTube channel and look for this broadcast, and you'll see in the description, you'll see those links. So there's a link to this one right here. This is very much like what you would see on Radio Reference. This is an advanced license search. This is great for searching for call signs or frequency searches, as you can see there. This is especially great for public safety licenses, and as the location types may match other operations in those areas. So we're going to dive to the next slide here. This is where it kind of gets into, where we can kind of check off various things. You can put in information in any one of these fields, the license name, the city, the state, zip code. And then, Rich, you were mentioning about, clicking these things on and off to see if you want to narrow it down to just active licenses. You can see under the license detail.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, active licenses are licenses that are currently active. It's not pending. They are not expired or not canceled or terminated. There's a difference between terminated and canceled. Canceled is something that you would do to your own license. Terminated is when the FCC says you're out. So you can, and then there's also things called STA, which is a special temporary authorization. That means you are licensed to use that frequency for a specific period of time for testing or an emergency. Your repeater got struck by lightning and needed to put a new repeater up, new frequency. That could be an STA, or there's a big event. The Super Bowl is happening in your town. So they'll get a special temporary authorization for a whole bunch of frequencies. And that's a license that self-expires after the event. And like I say, remember, the more stuff you put in, the less and more targeted your results are going to be.
I mean, even looking at, date of information, you can put in a range from this date to this date. And then even the frequency, you see that right here. You mentioned this earlier, you wanted to plug in a particular frequency. The other thing you can do, you can see there, you can select a range, from this frequency to this frequency. So if you've got a few mystery channels that you don't know, or you want to search frequencies in between that range, you can.
Yeah, you want to find all VHF channels used in Mayberry. So you put in Mayberry, North Carolina, and then 150 to 170, and that'll spit out all the licenses for VHF frequencies in Mayberry. So you can, there's stuff you can do like that if you're interested into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a really cool thing to be able to do right there. And look at the Carmen just put in a post right there. 6 watts was in the early days for a CB license. In the mid 60s, his grandfather had a 20 watt. Was that 20 watts? Right. That's what you're referring to.
So 6W was the way the early call signs worked. It you know how ham radio call signs have a number in them.
Yeah.
The original GMRS or CB licenses had numbers like that. It was 6W184.
It's
and they were allowed 20 watts on UHF. Later on, the CB, when it was to 27 megahertz, it was limited to 4 watts output, 12 on signal sideband.
I see. But look at that. I mean, 1959. I mean, that's and now anybody and their uncle can be on CB.
Yep.
Not that they would want to be, but
no. But there were actually 4 different versions of CB: Class A, B, C, and D. And Class D was the 27 megahertz CB that we would call CB these days. Class A is what we now call GMRS. Class B was something related to it, and I think Class C was remote control.
I getcha. Yeah, I was, every time I see, that's how my brain works. When I see the number and then I see a W, I'm thinking watts.
Yeah. Sometimes there's different context. So
so I'm always thinking that way with transmit. So let's continue on. So you can take a look at this here. This is the slide that Rich, you were mentioning about searching, using a site to search if you cannot find a particular operator, especially a business or utility. And this is the page right here. Tell us a little bit about this.
So on the previous page, when you put in a location, that was the license location. On this page, that's the license location. When you go to the next slide, and when you go to put a location in on this site, it's actually the service location or the operation location, or where the transmitter is located at. So I want to do a frequency on 154.57. And I want to do a frequency. I want to find all operations that operate in North Carolina. I would use this page. If I want to do an operation for everything licensed in North Carolina, where the licensee is in North Carolina, I would use the other page. So this is much better for business operations, which may be licensed to another state. The licensee may be in another state, but the operations are in your state.
Yeah, and then that's really That's really a neat thing to keep in mind. We do have a link to this page on our website. Well, I guess we'll continue on here.
Mm-hmm.
So this brings us to the portion of the FCC portion of it. Now we're at the radio reference portion. And this is a way to identify frequencies and TRS, which is trunking systems. And you can see here that it's pretty simple on radio reference. This will be right below the map of the United States. So if you were on that page with the database page, you would see the map of the United States, and then you would scroll down just a hair, or you may actually see it right in your view on the screen. And you can do a frequency search by state.
Yep.
You can do a frequency search by metro area. Some, like take for instance, Washington, D.C. If that's a metro area, that's going to overlap in multiple states around the DC metro area. And then the other thing too, which is really cool on that top line there, is trunk frequency searches, and you can search by type and then put the frequency in there.
Right. Since trunking systems have multiple frequencies, if you hear a thing that you think is trunking a control data, and you can identify, well, even if you can't identify the trunking type, you can put that frequency in there and find out what trunking systems have that frequency. Now, obviously, most trunking systems are in 700, 800, 900 megahertz. But nowadays, there's a lot of trunking systems that are on UHF and VHF. If you can identify it as a trunking system, you can put that frequency in there, and it'll tell you what trunking system it's in. So the question is, how do you find frequencies for an exact location of, say, a business address or a towing company? That would be that prior slide. You may not be able to go down and identify the exact address. Sometimes it might just be under latitude and longitude. Go to the next one. Yeah, the site search. No, the site search.
Yeah, it went too.
Yeah, you went too far. So yeah, you may not be able to find the exact address because this search doesn't really include that. But if you get the geographic coordinates, you can do a box search. Or you can put something close to that point. Again, if you put in the first two boxes of the latitude and longitude and leave the third one blank, that might help as well and get kind of widen an area. Now, if you've got an exact, if you got the address of the business, try doing the original search, the license search, because they may be licensed at their operations address. It might be there. Again, you're going to put the name and the city. You're not going to be able to do the address. Now, there are some advanced searches where you might be able to find it, but I wouldn't bet the farm on it.
All right, so we're back on radio reference here. So you can see the second section below identifying frequencies. You can see search for trunk radio information. So you can select it by state. In this case, this was screenshotted on my account. So North Carolina is the default. And then you can search by system name. You can search by talk group description. You can also search by system ID. So those are all things that you can search using.
Yeah, if you know the system ID, a lot of times the scanner will show you what the system ID if you park on a control channel, and then you put the system ID in here, and it'll tell you what system that is. Most of the time, system IDs are unique. Not always, but most of the time they're unique. So there are some systems like FedEx. It's got trunking systems at a lot of different airports for their package operations at airports, but they all share the same system ID. So they can take radios from Chicago and bring them out to Dulles and use the same radios because they're programmed with the same system ID. Certain Harris radio systems, trunking systems, will use a common system ID, and they use a different data portion to differentiate them. So system ID is not always perfect, but it's usually pretty good.
Here's the next section in radio reference. So this will be right below the section that we were just showing. And this is the FCC data. So if you happen to know the call sign, you can search it in that first box. If you know known frequency, you can type it in there. And the same thing with FCC search by metro area. You can search for an individual frequency. And then you can see here, you can do a search FCC, and then you can try to search for the name of the license, or you can do an FCC RN search, or you can do a latitude, longitude, and with a mile radius, which is kind of neat. You may be able to do that for that towing company,
right?
By doing, that latitude, longitude, and then do a radius, and then see if it's able to pick it up in that way.
So that FRN search is a really good thing. FRN stands for Federal Registration Number. And when you are an FCC licensee, if you got a ham radio license or a GMRS license, any FCC licensee has to have an FRN. And that FRN is used by any license you have. So I have both GMRS and ham. So my FRN is assigned to both. So if you find an FRN of Mayberry, and you put that in there, not only will you find the licenses for the Mayberry Police, but you might be able to find their public works, their water department, their sewer department, their highway department, and you might find some other licenses assigned to them, and it gives you a better idea of what they have. With your proximity search, this is a great way to find things that are licensed within an area. And this is a good interface. RadioReference's interface to the FCC database. So it's a little bit easier to use than the FCC page itself.
Okay. Looks like Michael's got a follow-up question here. So if you do the search and you get a lot of Nextel or LTR systems for the area, for the location, would they be on one of those? Possibly. With a lot of tow truck companies, they don't typically own their own radio system, so they'll be on one of those business systems where there's a whole bunch of different users. So that very well could be the case. I've noticed that, that there's a whole bunch of these LTRs systems that cover a huge region, and typically, tow truck company could cover a huge amount of territory. They're the official official tow truck company of a particular stretch of highway that could go several miles. By putting in a single tower, you're only going to have so much coverage. But with these regional LTR systems, you're going to have some greater coverage there. So you're going to find a lot of tow truck companies, taxi stands, bus companies are going to go on these larger systems where it's shared amongst a whole bunch of other users. So just basically a subscriber to that system.
Yeah, absolutely. It used to be that if you were a subscriber to an SMR, which is a specialized mobile radio, which a commercial service that provides the radio infrastructure, you used to have to have your own license for that. Nowadays, the individual subscribers no longer need a license as long as the system itself is licensed. So Jonathan's radio company owns this big wide area trunking system that covers all of North and South Carolina and parts of Georgia. And he sells radio service to tow truck companies, funeral homes, delivery services, and Joe's Pizza Shop. And all of those people don't have to have their individual license, but Jonathan does for his system. And if you find a frequency like on a close call or wherever else you get it, and you put that into the database, and all the licenses are an LTR system or a Nextel or Jonathan's radio service, chances are the guy is subscribing to that service.
Yeah, more than likely. It looks like Randy's mentioning he's having some problems with using the latitude longitude search.
Yeah, the problem is people put in the wrong geographic coordinates a lot of times on licenses. They'll mix. There's 18,000 different ways to identify latitude and longitude. You can do it all decimals. You can do it hour, minute, seconds, and there's different methods to the madness of determining your geographic points. Nowadays, they just use a GPS or MapQuest or Google Maps, and they get the coordinates that way. But the old way, you used to have to buy topographical maps
Jeez.
and use a special ruler to do that. And it took you 10 minutes just to find one set of coordinates. Imagine doing that for a system with 50 sites. It'd take you days to do that. And they're historically inaccurate. So they're not that reliable.
Ira has a mention right here from Detroit. And you can advise on the scanner for custom search to find unlicensed DMR frequencies. I know they're supposed to be 12.5.
Yeah, that depends on the frequency range you're using. So if you're listening to UHF, then yeah, 12.5 is the proper step size. But if you're listening to VHF, which there's a lot of DMR and other digital modes on VHF these days, you might have to use as low as 2.5 kilohertz because or whatever particular settings your scanner has. The one nice thing about that is you can actually set a higher frequency or a search range on those VHF ones because it doesn't have to be perfect to find the thing. So you can set it to say 5 kilohertz spacing on VHF, and that'll work. On UHF, 12.5 is your best bet.
Yeah, it looks like Joe kind of followed up with that with the T band and the with the 6.25 spacing. Yeah,
I mean 6.25 is more often used for NXDN because NXDN is not TDMA. It's not. There's no time slots involved like DMR, and DMR's got time slots, so they can use a wider channel, but they can split it up into time slots. NXDN is uses narrower spacing because they're not using individual time slots.
Very interesting stuff here. We'll continue on with the we'll continue on the slideshow. Actually, that wraps up the FCC and RadioReference portion of it. So if you have additional questions right now, post them in the comments right now. We'll be able to answer those momentarily. I'm just going to go through a couple of these slides. If you've got scanner questions, definitely email support@scannermaster.com. You can give us a call at 1-800-722-6637, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can shop ScannerMaster 24/7 at ScannerMaster.com. And our next week's broadcast, we're going to do an overview of digital radio formats. So we've been getting a lot of email, so we're going to do that next week. And that'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, right here on the Scanner Guys. So August the 4th. Imagine that. We're already going to be jumping right into August. And just as a quick reminder, Phil from the Scanner School will be joining us Wednesday, August the 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you mark your calendar. If you're a fan of the Scanner School, you'll be able to – he typically does some live stuff, so you've actually seen him on YouTube and on Facebook, but you'll see him live right here on the show. So he'll be joining the panel as we interview him, and then I think Phil's going to stick around for the Q&A. So you have 3 experts on the panel to be able to answer questions. So it should be a good show, and they'll be our first guest right here on the Scanner Guys. So we're excited about that. If you haven't checked them out, certainly check out the Scanner School. Great resource. Pretty much Phil and us are the only weekly type of thing that's out there for scanner enthusiasts. He specializes in the podcasts. We do the live shows where we're interactive with our audience. So we're both filling some very important niches out there for scanner enthusiasts. So take a look here. We're looking always for your stupid scanner tricks and your Shack photos. So make sure you send those over to us. You can email the Scanner School at the Scanner School. You can email the Scanner Guys at gmail.com. That's the Scanner Guys at gmail.com.
I know I've got a radio squawking in the background. I just can't figure out which one it is.
Yeah, I heard that, but that's cool. And then you can always check out my blog, Train Aficionado. at trainaficionado.com. I'm also on social media as well, Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter at Rail Aficionado. So make sure you follow there. And you can follow, like, and subscribe to Scanner Master on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Scanner Master Co. And then don't forget, the Scanner Guys. Make sure you show us some love. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram, follow us at the Scanner Guys. So we're going to dive into some of your questions, but first, we're going to jump into the mailbag, which is actually on my phone. So, wait a minute.
You got a mailbag in there someplace.
Yeah.
A virtual mailbag.
A virtual mailbag. So let's see here. And it looks like I just got an email that someone just ordered a shirt. So it looks like you can still order some shirts from the Scanner Guys. So I just saw that just came through. So I guess you can still order shirts. I know we have the link on our website still, but I haven't taken a look at it. It's been a crazy week. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to answer a few, like look at a few of the emails that we've gotten. Let me just see here. We went over this at the beginning. Oh, yeah. Steve from Missouri mentioned, is there any way that you can start downloading the slide show to each show? And he really liked that because we did that last week with not the FCC, but the federal, where we talked about federal frequencies and so on. Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. I think we're going to start doing that. So that's a very good email. Andrew sent us an email about how about you do a show about digital systems, P25, DMR, Mobo Turbo, and things like that. Well, Andrew, coming up next.
Your wish is our command.
So we're definitely going to cover that. I've seen a lot of comments and emails about digital systems. So I guess we're overdue because everybody's asking about it. Chris, I did get photos of your shack. So that is awesome. We will be sharing that in an upcoming show. So I've got those photos there. Let's see what else that came in our mailbag here. Let's see here. CJ sent us a lengthy email here, which I got to take a look at. So I'll have to take a look at that. He shares some information about his history in the scanner hobby. So we'll definitely take a look at that. So we do get your emails. And let's see here. Scott sent us a really cool antenna, which I'm going to share in an upcoming broadcast as well. He actually sent us a photograph of his setup, and I'm just teasing it right now. So we will show that in an upcoming broadcast. I can actually. There's the antenna there. It looks like a beam antenna. So we'll definitely talk about that in an upcoming show. But that's one of our stupid scanner tricks that we get occasionally through the email. So we're really excited about you guys emailing us. It's been a crazy week for me. Usually I try to reply back to these emails. I've just been going crazy with multiple projects going on the burner. But we are excited to answer some of your questions. I know we had several check-ins there, Rich, right?
Oh, yeah, we got a bunch. Run through a couple of the check-ins real quick. Hello, Wilbur. He was our first check-in this week. My buddy Ray from Chicagoland. Dave's ready to get educated. And and then there's Alicia got here a little while back. Let's see here. Mr. McGee. Yeah. Hey, I did get your message the other day, and you're welcome. I'm glad we were able to help you. And of course, Chris. I mean, can't be a show here without Chris.
Where's Dale?
I don't know. I have not seen Dale yet. Maybe his wife wouldn't let him use her computer.
I don't know. I haven't seen Dale yet. I mean, well, the last time what was it, last week? Or, he was listening to us driving home.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure if he's doing that. Dale, if you are listening, don't need to type to us. Just keep listening and driving.
Be safe.
We're saying hello to you.
Yeah. We got to give a shout out to Dale. Yeah. Got to say hi. Say it again.
I said we definitely have to meet Dale.
Yeah, absolutely. So, oh wait, he's there. He's there. He checked in.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. I just hadn't gotten down that far. There he is.
I haven't seen, because I usually look out for his comment.
Yeah.
I must have missed it. I was probably reading one of the slides.
Yeah. He's got his first bottle of water. I'm on this is number 3 for me here. So, so yeah, he was there. I just missed his comment. Let's see here. Delicious snacks and drinks are ready. And hey, Steve, you read his email. He's also checked in.
Yeah, so that should be really cool. That's a great suggestion. That was something I actually was thinking about doing. Is posting the slideshows, because there is a lot of valuable information on there. Yeah. And you can certainly look through it and then be able to write things down or look at it. So we'll definitely start doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. And there's a lot of good information in these slideshows. And sometimes we understand if you're watching at a phone, it's kind of hard to see the text a lot of times. So, was it Yankees? Yankees? What the heck is? I don't know what that means. So
yeah, I think of those people from New York.
Oh, well, yeah, it's New York. Jerry's checking in from Cincinnati. If you're watching the game, by the way, my Cubs are losing 9-0 right now. So, and they're playing the Reds. So
is it on? Do you have a package where you're able to watch the games?
No, but I go to their website and it gives live updates.
Yeah, so. I was figuring, because most of us are out of, I'm out of the Red Sox market. You're out of the Cubs market completely.
Well, no, this is Phoenix. This is like Chicago South. So
yeah, but you're out of the broadcast market, I should say.
Yeah, that's true. All righty. So Dave's checking in from Buffalo. He likes the there's a Red
Sox, the Boston Red
Sox. Oh yeah. Oh, another minor league team. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, so yeah, I'm a National League guy, so anything in the American League is, although I can't really tell nowadays.
Yeah, because the pitcher has to go to bat now.
It's the other way around. No, we got the DH in the National League now. That stinks. I hate the DH. Don't get me started with the DH.
Oh, it's the other way around. I misunderstood.
Yeah. So yeah, we're playing American League rules this year.
That's crazy.
I hate it.
You like it when the pitcher goes up to bat?
Oh yeah, I was a pitcher when I played baseball, and I was also a good hitter. So, let's see here. Joe says there's not much going on for his Giants this year. So, Cubs had a good start, but they're having a bad day. So hopefully, it would be fun to see the Cubs in the World Series again.
Yeah.
John Anderson is up in the UP. He's a Youper. A Youper, yep. If you ever get up to the UP, there's some great rail fanning there. And I spent a lot of time chasing trains up there. And I've actually seen the Youpers, Die Youpers. They're a band that plays on the UP stuff up there. They're out of a little town called Ishpeming, and I've actually seen them play up there. They're hilarious. They got a song called The Second Day of Deer Camp. And if you're from the Midwest, you know all about deer camp. All righty. Kevin says hello. Yep, we were working on my volume.
Yeah, that was interesting. You basically blew me out of the water. So you must have done something during the week that must have put down your volume slightly. Because right now, what we use now, I have mic control is now done locally. So
yeah.
So I have Rich has got to fix his own mic. I can't do anything here.
I hadn't done anything to it, so.
Yeah, I mean, I was hearing you okay, probably because I'm wearing headphones.
Yeah,
so I'm hearing you pretty, loud and clear, even though it could be a little lower. But our audience that are using speakers certainly got to hear you loud and clear at a certain point.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe there's some ambient noise, or maybe the ceiling fan is doing something weird. Who knows? So Dave says you should change your batteries. Yeah. I got to change the batteries in my bionic eyeballs one of these days.
Yeah.
Jimmy says hello. Jay's our buddy from Papillon. I just love saying that. Papillon, Nebraska. I just like saying the name of that town. and I've been there, so it's kind of a neat little town. Typical Midwestern small town, although it's rapidly becoming a suburb of Omaha. Let's see here. Joe is in New York. Roger Dodger. Okay. Here's how do you spell the town that Les is from?
I'm trying
ETB Etabakoki? Itabaki? Itabaki, I guess. I don't know.
I'm trying to find where we're at.
And relatively quick in the comments. Towards the beginning of the comments. And Les is from, I think it's called Etobicoke. I've been there. I just never knew how to pronounce that. It's spelled Etobicoke. So Etobicoke, I think it's called. All right. Tony's checking in. Howdy, howdy.
Here it is. I'll put it up on the screen. Yeah, I mean, because I'm able to, with our new studio thing here, we're able to post the thing. Yeah, I'm not too sure how to pronounce it. I think you were pretty darn close.
Yeah. Let's see here. Since it's about radio, maybe the deviation on my microphone, this is from Dale, maybe the deviation needs to be turned up. So, yeah, I actually, the first time I tried it, it's the local, I haven't adjusted the volume on this thing in months, and the knob on the top is the local volume for the headphones that are plugged into the back of the microphone. I forgot the gain controls on the bottom side.
You probably were doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, and then
louder and louder because you're turning it up, but you're not. Yeah. You're not getting louder and louder for us.
So then I went into the settings here and I turned on the mic on the webcam, and that's when I blasted out everybody's eardrums.
Yeah, well, especially me. I get headphones on, so I'm like, oh,
yeah. But your audio was good.
Yeah, we apologize once again for anybody that may have soiled themselves. Well, Rich was blasting down, waking up dogs, and waking up the neighbors' dogs as well.
Yeah, and all the dead ones too. So Ray watches our Scanner School podcast all the time. So yeah, if you ever go to the Scanner School Facebook and does he have a YouTube page too?
Yeah. Oh, he watches the Scanner School, not our Scanner School. We don't have a Scanner School. We're the Scanner.
No, I'm talking about the Scanner School. We're the Scanner guys. He's the Scanner School, and he's a Scanner user. So yeah.
And we're Scanner users as well. So if you want to use the living crap out of everybody.
Yeah, we got a few here and there, So
there's a couple.
Let's see. So I guess having your eardrums blew out is better than being naked. Yeah, you do not want to see me naked. That is not a pretty picture. And you will be spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on therapy after that. So, no, you do not want to see that. So, let's see here. Thanks for blowing your speakers. Sorry about that, Ray. Didn't mean to do that. So, it's feast or famine. That was when I had my web mic on there. Woke up his dog. There, USB. Woke up his dog at his neighbor's house. So Gary's got Bluetooth hearing aids, and that was bad for him. Sorry about that, Gary.
Oh, shoot. Oh, God. I was more on the air. Whoa,
that's okay. We'll fix that in post. Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty.
Keep that up. We're gonna have to put. This is rated for mature audiences.
Yes.
Discretion is. I didn't. I almost slipped. I caught myself.
You caught yourself. Very good. So Art says hello from the Northern California, and I wanted to thank me for helping him with the DMR the other day. You're welcome, sir. No problem. That's why we're here. Call us at 1-800-SCANNER, and we will do our best to help you out if you need it.
If you don't know that, it's 1-800-722-6637.
Very good.
I have it memorized.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about it is I actually had a phone that didn't have, well, of course, cell phones don't have letters on the phones, do they? I guess they do. But I actually had a phone that didn't have the letters on the phone.
Yeah.
And so guy gave me, call 1-800, I don't know, get dog. And I'm like, well, what letter is that?
Yeah, you raised a good question there. Is it on our iPhones? Yep, it is.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny, on our iPhones. Well, we're both
Yeah.
iPhone users, so
Yeah. Who knows about Androids?
yeah.
They still sell Android phones?
Yeah, from what I hear.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're not going to get this kind of radio up and down the dial, right?
Yeah.
So Alicia says some of the police departments in her area still use low band for chit chat. Yeah, if they've switched over to VHF or UHF, sometimes a lot of places will use their old radio channels for car to car and stuff like that. That was really big in the Chicago area. When I was a kid, all the police departments in the Chicago area, for the most part, were on VHF high band, 150s. And when they started moving off to UHF and T band and 470, they almost every police department kept their VHF channels in the car for car-to-car operations, and kind of a backup channel. So that was extremely common. So you always had the UHF radio on a portable with you, and the VHF radio in the car, because the mutual aid channels were in the car as well. So they would keep that for that. So if they move to a new set of frequencies, keep the old frequencies in there. You might still hear them. See, Mike is in Mississauga, which is a town in Canada that it can actually pronounce. Why won't the Scanner Guy's YouTube channel alert him to live screens? There's something weird going on with YouTube. I can't get it to alert, but
it
other
works
people
for me.
can.
Yeah, so I don't know what it is. I mean, I have it set so it will, and it does for me. I mean, I have it set so it alerts. So you have to check in your local account, but we're on like clockwork. I mean, you really don't need an alert because it's every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Our butts are in this chair live.
Yep.
And like clockwork. Unless we're sick or dead, we'll be here.
Yeah. You can set up an alert on your iPhone and your Android and have it set in a beep at 7 o'clock on Wednesdays or 8 o'clock or whatever time zone you're in. So if he's in Mississauga, I think so. So he's Eastern time zone. So set it for 8 o'clock, and it'll you can set it so it'll say the Scanner Guys.
Yeah, tune in live right here on Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube.
Yeah, well, we're also on Facebook this evening.
Yeah, no, but we don't want to talk about Facebook. We don't like Facebook. So we already talked about Alicia's comments there. Hey, Joe, how you doing? Hey, Charlie. One of your neighbors, Charlie is. Yeah. So if you go down to the UHF are always 5 meg apart on 453, yes, Alicia, you're right. The inputs are almost always 5 megahertz up. So if they're on 453, the inputs would normally be on 458. There are the weird occasions where they might not be, but almost 100% of the time, that's exactly right. And if you're in an area that uses T-band, which is anywhere between 470 and 512, the repeater inputs are 3 megahertz up. So 470.662, the input would be 473.662. If you're on 800, the inputs are 45 megahertz below. And if you're on 700, the inputs are 35 megahertz.
I think so. I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I think it's 35 megahertz away. And then on 900, I think it's 39 megahertz. And there is a method for those. There's a reason why they are that far apart. And that's by what they did is they took the available spectrum and they cut it in half. And that was the difference. So on UHF, the original UHF, the band was 450 to 460 and then 460 to 470. And they were 10 megahertz worth of spectrum. So they cut it in half. The lower half was the outputs. The upper half was the inputs. On T-band, they were 6 megahertz segments. Each channel was 6 megahertz. So they cut that in half and they put the repeater inputs 3 megahertz away so that the first half was outputs and the second half was inputs. And that's why you've got 5 megahertz differences, 3 megahertz differences, 35, 39, or what have you. So there is a method to the madness.
And we wanted to mention about Joe. He was not feeling so well, and we're happy to see he's back watching the Scanner Guys. So hopefully, I'm not too sure what was going on. A lot of people were talking about you last week, and we're happy that you're back. And hopefully, whatever's going on, you have a speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
You were on our thoughts last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, this will be some entertainment and make you feel even better. And we get you to laugh a couple times. That's great too.
Yeah.
So Lisha reminds us that 2005 was the last year the police call was printed. That's 15 years ago. So I said 10 years or so. So I guess or so was 15.
Or so was the word of emphasize. Or so,
Yeah.
Sure.
So we were both contributors to it. So we would get the free ones every year. And when I moved, I had a stack on about 6 feet high worth of police calls that I'd saved over the years. And that was way too many. I kept a couple after I moved. I've got a few in my bookshelf. A couple of real old ones. I think the first year that my name was in there, and maybe I think I kept like the last one. So. Alicia monitors expired frequencies. We were talking about that before, where keep some of those old licenses, old channels in your radio so that they may still be using them. Looks like Boston was winning 2-1 in the fourth, playing the Mets.
That's good.
Yeah. Of course, that was 45 minutes ago, so they could be losing by now.
All right, that could be happening. Hopefully, they're not losing.
So John was also a CB licensee. He was KAOR 82872. So back in the 70s,
that's quite a license.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was. It was 4 letters, 4 numbers back in the CB days. Mine was KALK 5934, but again, that was from 1970 something, and I don't know why I can still remember that almost 40 years later or 50 years later. For whatever reason, I can still remember that. But that's the way CB licenses were. It was 4x4. So GMRS these days are 4x3. Originally, when I got my first GMRS license, it was 3 letters and 4 numbers. So it's just whatever frequency range or whatever call sign ranges that the FCC decides to use. Let's see here. So Joe is still in his recovery phase. So keep going on your recovery. And we talked about the 6W call signs before. Carmen tells us the CB licenses ended in 1983, if you recall it correctly. So that's about right. So that's been almost 40 years that they've stopped licensing CBs individually. And we talked about that. Chris writes down, in South Carolina, Aiken County Fire uses FRS channels for Fireground. They got 5 FRS channels for Fireground. That's weird. And depending on what radios they're using, it may or may not be legal. On FRS, you can use them for just about anything, including business or public safety operations. It's the rule on that is the actual radio itself. So for FRS channels, you have to use FRS certified radio. So they have to have certain technical specifications. They have to be type accepted specifically for GMRS. So you're limited to 0.5 watt with very narrow bandwidth, no removable antenna, and they have to be type accepted. So if they are using true FRS radios, more power to them. It's probably not the right tool for the job, but they may not have the money to go out and get real channels and stuff. If they are putting FRS channels in their regular 2-way radios and programming those in, that is not legal. So I can't take a Motorola radio and program FRS channels into it. That's not it's not licensed or it's not legal for that. So Mike says, how do you find frequencies for an exact location and the address? I think we spoke of that earlier.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So we're good at that. So a couple of definitions of some of the, RR in our context today is radio reference, and FRS is family radio service. Oh, Joe brings up a good point. Be careful about using the system ID. Sometimes in the same state that can be reused. So typically Motorola built trunking systems, whether they're Motorola trunking protocol or P25, typically have a unique system ID on a per system basis. The only time you would normally see a duplicated system ID on a Motorola built system is when it's owned by the same company, or like the U.S. military has got trunking systems at a lot of different military bases, and they all use the same system ID. That helps them to be able to share radios back and forth. FedEx, we were talking about before, it has multiple trunking systems, all with the system ID all over the country. Harris, which is the second big player especially on P25 systems, they don't use the system ID as the unique identifier. They use a different portion of the data stream. So you might have multiple Harris radio systems totally unrelated using the same system ID. So, system ID is useful, but it's not foolproof. And let's see here. So if you do that search and get a lot of, we talked about that one earlier. We talked about Randy's latitude and longitude search. We talked about Ira's. Hey, John, how you doing? Michael's is a veteran combat communications from the Army. Thank you for all your service.
Thank you so much.
Let's see here. You can never give too much props to military guys. So Joe says in his area they're using 6 1/4 spacing, and that's when we were talking about DMR. So in some areas they are using 6 1/4 for DMR. Check that for your searching. Again, most of the time with scanners, if you do a search in an area that they're actually using 6.25, if you're using a wider spacing, chances are you're going to hear it anyways. If it sounds a little muffled or off frequency, try fine-tuning the frequency, and it'll bring it up to it. So sometimes there are operations in the Fed band. I'm not sure what the context was on that comment, but there's a frequency band 406 to 420, which is very commonly used by a lot of federal things. We talked about this last week. Some DEA and other federal operations operate on UHF on 406 to 420. There's a lot of military trunking systems that operate from 380 to 400, which used to be part of the military aircraft band and occasionally still is. But a lot of the Air Force bases and such have moved their trunking systems to the 380 to 400 band. So you might find some of that in there. Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to find those in the FCC licensing. You will find it in the radio reference database, but not in the FCC because the FCC doesn't normally license federal operations. Mike has got a question about the 536, and I passed it up somehow. Let's see here.
Oh, well, I got it on the screen.
Oh, do you? Okay, yeah, I was scrolling and I lost it. So on the 536, will it or can it not receive 9600 baud NXDN channels or frequencies? So as far as I know, the 536 should work fine on 9600 baud. I've used both my 536 and my SDS, and I've not noticed it. So it should be able to work. And if it's not, maybe check your firmware, make sure your firmware is up to date.
Yeah, that's definitely a key thing. Like if you're having any operational issues, definitely check your firmware.
Yeah. And like I said, as far as I know, it should work fine on the 9600 baud. There might be some programming differences, but it should work. So let's see. We talked about that. Sponsor should be Burger King. Yeah. There's a few towing companies in the Metro. Oh, hey, Ron. How are you, buddy? I've known Ron for 40 years. So there's a few towing companies in the Detroit area that uses the VHF 150 megahertz. Sometimes one of them still uses voice inversion scrambling.
Oh, geez. So, that's annoying as hell to hear that.
Yeah.
Some of the southern towns in Maine during summer months will occasionally use it for sensitive stuff over their main channel. And my God, that's annoying.
Basically, voice inversion scrambling is an analog way of scrambling voice communications. And it's just that. It takes the highs and converts them to lows, and the lows converts them to high. It was very easy to decode. You could buy these little boxes that you plug into the headphone jack, and it would actually uninvert that. And it's really easy to get past. And I actually know at least 2 people who could listen to voice inversion and listen to it and decode it in their head.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And that can be done. And it was a very cheap and easy way to get into some
yeah, so that's definitely
go definitely to Burger King and make a pickup.
We lost you went a little digital on us, Rich.
It
was just you went a little digital on us. It went
I went around there, So inversion scrambling was very easy to get past, and there are some people that can actually hear it live and decode it without any problem. So
that's for sure.
All righty. Dave asks, what's the best way to program a Pro 96? It doesn't support NAC codes. Pro 96 is an older scanner. It'll work for P25 trunking systems that operate in the 800 megahertz band. It will not work for 700 megahertz systems. So you don't need the NAC code. It's like putting a PL code on a frequency. It'll still work without the NAC code. In fact, unless you need to put a NAC code in there, I wouldn't put a NAC code in. Let's see. Joe asked if I still have a bag phone. No, but I have a bag phone antenna someplace with an adapter to work on BNC. They work really well for 800.
Yeah, that's for sure. Those antennas, a lot of those 800 megahertz antennas, or 900 megahertz antennas for cellular works really well.
Oh yeah. I don't have it here, but they worked really well for 800 megahertz. And if you had one of those, it was before those Remtronics antennas were available, and that was the next best thing. John wants to learn how to program a Motorola Type 2 SmartNet system onto a BCD 996. So you could do so. You would program it as a Motorola trunking system. And a SmartNet system means that it's networked, kind of like a P25 network systems. There's multiple sites, and they're all connected with microwave or phone lines and such. So you would program it just like you would any other trunking system. Just make sure that you select Motorola as the trunking protocol. And then, again, you create a site with the frequencies for that particular site. And if you got multiple sites that you want to listen to, put each of those sites in there. So the program's like any other.
And the great place, if you're not too sure how to do that and you're manually programming it, go to markscanners.com. There is he's created some manuals that are kind of easier to read in layman's terms. So there'll be a whole section on his website for that particular radio that'll kind of step you through the instructions on how to program a trunking system. And that's markscanners.com.
Yeah, and that's a great resource. I refer people to that all the time. Lincoln's checking in from San Diego. Howdy. Mike is asking a question on his 536. He's getting no signal strength, and it will not find any LCNs, and it's not encrypted in Analyze. So it might not be a trunking channel that you're trying to analyze. It might be some sort of other data, paging, or some other form of data, MDT data. If you are sure it's a trunking channel, I'm not sure did they ever complete the analyze feature on the 536s? I know there was some question about that. I use my SDS for that. I haven't been using my 536
And
for that recently.
I know the Home Patrol 1 and 2, has it on the Extreme.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure if they ever got that properly working on the 536 and the 436. So if that's the case, you might not work. You might want to try using one of the computer programs like Pro 96Com or Unitrunker. And that's a great way to analyze. We spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. That's a great way of getting trunking data logged and decoded. And you get a ton of good information that way. John asks about the P25 filter. Does it improve reception or does it hurt it? So the problem with the P25 filters on the unit and scanners is it's a trial and error thing. So it might work for you, but it might not work for me.
Or the other thing, it might work really well on one system and not so good on another.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of, like you said, it's trial and error thing. Just remember where you've started so you can always go back.
Yeah, and it might work today, but tomorrow it'll sound better without the filter. So, and there's not a lot of documentation on it, but again, it's just pretty much a trial and error. Find the one that works best for you and be prepared to change it back if necessary. So let's see here. Oh, yeah, Ken, to the guy, I think Dave, who had asked about his Pro 96, there's a program called Win 96. We also have Arc 96 that we sell, and there's a few other programs. So it's almost always easier to program a scanner, any scanner, with a computer. So Joe's had the night off for a change. So, hey, here for the whole show. Great. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. John says, good evening. He set up a new scanner shack. Send us pictures.
Yeah, we'd love to see them.
Yeah. And take pictures before and after. Even if you don't share them with us, you'll want to have those. Take some pictures of how it looked before you started it, and then take a bunch of extras and share them with us. So let's see here. Apparently you can use a non-digital trunk scanner again in Utah. So there might be some areas that they're not using digital. I know the state digital system, the wide area system there, it was a Motorola trunking. So I don't think they're using digital on the statewide system, but in some of the cities, they might be switching over to digital. So, you can still get some use out of some of your older analog scanners. Even in areas that have switched to digital, you might still be use your analog scanners for other stuff as well. Let's see here. Mike is checking in from Southeast Alabama. My mom grew up out there. My mom grew up in a little town called Fairhope, which is right across the bay from Mobile, which is pretty much as far south as you can get in Alabama and not be in the Gulf. So, let's see here. Frequency is NAC P25. Oh, he was asking earlier about putting the NAC in his Pro 96. It might be P25, but you do not need to have the NAC code. And I think we mentioned this earlier, but if you don't need the NAC code, I'd normally recommend people not to put it in, because if it changes and you have NAC code 4 in there and now you're using NAC code 17, you're not going to hear it anymore. So unless you need to put the NAC code in there for some other reason, just ignore the NAC code, even if you got a scanner that's capable of doing NACs. Carmen does screenshots of our slides, and he says, and for future reference, you can do that. Absolutely.
The funny thing with the new format now that that will be a part of the screenshot, because it looks like this.
Mm-hmm. You can see our picture.
Yep, right on the side of it.
All right. For those that are keeping count, I am on number 4. So
And 4 is what in sign language again?
4.
Yeah, so it's just like that. What was it? 3 is
3.
3. Yep.
Yeah. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't think I'll get up to 9 bottles. I only have 5 with me here, so I got one more left after this. So as soon as we are off the air tonight, I will be taking a quick walk down the hall.
You know, the funny thing, I would love to. We should challenge you some night to, on one of the slides, while you're talking about it, sign the whole thing.
I'll try, but signing gets kind of hard to do it for a long time if you're not used to doing it.
Yeah.
So, so it's you can get very tiring. And I have some friends that are sign language interpreters, and they actually have some of the strongest arms and hands that I've ever seen because they are constantly moving and going. And and my wife's the same thing. She has a fantastic grip because she is always using her hand.
So what? I mean, we got on this topic.
Sure, why not?
So, is it easier for you to sign when like you talking, or have you ever had to sign for someone that was talking to your wife? Which is it more challenging trying to keep up with them?
Yeah, I'm not an interpreter. So an interpreter.
Have you had for your wife?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, I interpret for my wife all the time, but I'm not a trained interpreter. So I can sign and talk at the same time, but not particularly well. And there are times where I have to stop and sign something and then listen to it. Most of the time, if it's fast or easy to do, I can do them both at the same time. But a trained interpreter has to be able to think in both languages at the same time and then be able to talk, and you're going to be a few seconds behind.
So you're literally archiving and catching up.
Yeah. And if you've ever learned a second language, try, if you know French or Spanish or something like that, listen to somebody in English and then try talking in Spanish at the same time. Same thing with sign language. It's, it can be very difficult. All right, moving on back to radio stuff.
Interesting.
So Ken, no go on the Pro 97. He's got one, so maybe on a 996. So I think we were talking about digital. The Pro 97 is an analog only scanner, and it came out about the same time as the Pro 96. It was kind of like an analog version of the Pro 96. Todd is checking in from Edgemont, South Dakota. Ken says his 996P2 is working pretty well with simulcast. We can spend an entire show, and I think we have spent an entire show talking about simulcast and what you can and can't do with it. A lot of that's location based. So let's see here. Scanning sports events. Yeah. Hopefully by, if we get that, if we get past this COVID thing, where people can actually go to sporting events.
I think, for the last 2 years we've done, NASCAR, just because it's timely at the beginning. We did a show. The funny thing is we did a show this year for NASCAR, and then, the COVID stuff kicked in, and then it kind of, went away,
So, and Joe also agrees with me, no DH. Yeah. I'm a kind of a purist for when it comes to that kind of stuff. I've always hated DH. Of course, I've always been a National League fan, so we didn't have DH, and I always hated it. Still do.
Yeah, I
always hate it.
I liked, I'm kind of happy that we had the DH because David Ortiz, he's became quite an icon. But it was interesting seeing him play first base. Because David Ortiz is quite the hitter, but he's not like super fast. He's not. He's built that's why he's going to hit it out of the park because he's not. He's not the type to steal bases and all that. But it was funny to watch him on first base. Of course, first base, as if you're trying to get a double, you got to be quick on your feet.
Yeah. The first base is probably the least athletic position on a baseball team, because you don't have to have as big a range on first base. You stay relatively close to the bag, and you're and you're not exerting yourself nearly as much as like an outfielder would be, or especially a middle infielder, a shortstop and second base. Those guys, they got a boogie.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So yeah, that's why your typical first baseman is big and tall, and he can be relatively slow because that's what he needs. All righty, so Kevin misses Radio Shacks. Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, we used to be able to walk in there and get our little adapters, or being able to go into a store and actually physically see scanners.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really. I mean, have you been into a Fry's Electronics recently?
Ugh. They used to be an awesome place. They didn't have a lot of radio stuff, but they had some radio stuff. But they're falling on hard times. And the last time I was there was before the COVID thing started, and they are really it's really a shell of its former self.
I went there for a few years ago. It was a while back when I actually went to Las Vegas, and that was the first time I went to a Fry's Electronics. And I was like, "Wow, this is cool. There's actually scanners on the shelf."
Yeah,
you know, I was like, this is pretty neat, and it's a cool store. I'm sorry to hear that it kind of went south. I'm guessing I must have seen it when it was at its peak or when it was good, but that's
it's been about the last year and a half or 2 years now that they've. I'm sure they're having money issues or something like that, but they were in their day. They were awesome. I mean, I bought my both my NUCs there, my Intel NUCs, and a bunch of stuff: monitors, monitor arms, video cards, memory, you name it. Yeah, you can get all that stuff there. I bought a camera there. We bought TVs, and now it's they got cases of water because that takes up a lot of shelf space.
Yeah,
it's too bad. So let's see here. Way down in LA, Kenneth is. There's Sean. 2-2, bottom of the sixth for the Red Sox.
Okay. Of course, we're reporting that on a long delay.
Yeah, that was at 6 o'clock. So
or 9 o'clock here. So
yeah, your time. Yeah, that's 45 minutes ago. So.
Hey, at least there is rules against like reporting a broadcast where you're live if you're not official NFL or MLB broadcast host. We're not violating it by any means here with the 40. What is it? About 40 minutes of delay.
Yeah, I think we got enough delay on there to cover our our issues.
Yeah.
So let's see. Chris is we have two Chris's. He's checking in from Beaufort, South Carolina. Or is that Beaufort? Is that Beaufort or Beaufort?
I'm not sure. I haven't been there, so I'm not certain. I got to do a lot of exploring down here. I've done a little bit of road tripping, but not a whole lot.
Yeah. Should try Morse code back in the day when he was in combat communications. Michael wrote that. So, I actually got my ham license before the no code thing started. So I actually had to pass a code test to get it. I couldn't, do my name in Morse code these days, but a million years ago, I did have a coded license. Let's see here. Let's see. The government. Why doesn't the government have to license their frequencies? So there's a reason for it. First off, the federal government is mostly exempt from many of the laws that it passes. And number two, they have a separate agency. And I think it's the NTIA, National I'm not 100% positive, but they have a separate agency that handles licensing and coordination of federal frequencies. So they have a bunch of frequencies that are set aside for the federal government, and they have an internal agency that coordinates that use. So if I work for the Federal Bureau of Scanner Master, I would go to the NTIA and say, hey, I need 4 frequencies to use in Phoenix and 2 to use in North Carolina. And they would give me the frequencies, and they would keep track of it there. So they don't use the civilian licensing that the FCC does. Oh, see, and they don't always have call signs, although sometimes they do. The FBI in the Chicago office had a call sign, and it was, I don't remember what it was, with KLB 123 or something like that. And they would actually use that call sign. Most federal agencies, as far as I know, don't have call signs, and you can't look those up like you could the FCC database. Let's see here. So John was talking about programming, and Alicia says you can send your scanner to Scanner Master and let us program it for you. Yeah, you can do that. Absolutely. We do have a programming service for most scanners. If you have a scanner that has an SD card, like a Home Patrol or a 536 or something, you don't have to send the scanner in. We would send the SD card to you. So, you can avail that. If you go to scannermaster.com, click on the programming page, it'll tell you all about it. Kenneth says, props to y'all for thanks for your service, our military guys. Appreciate it.
So much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again also to our police and firefighters and EMTs and especially dispatchers. Those guys, they earn their money, especially these days. So can't say enough about them. Of course, I've been all four in my lifetime. So I have a kind of a soft part in my heart for that. Let's see here. Let's see, Cards all the way. Yeah, Cardinals. I'm a Cubs fan, so of course we have it wired into our system to hate the Cardinals. Although it's not been so much the Cardinals as it's been the Brewers for Cubs fans these days. So it's going to be an interesting season this year because everything is in the division, or at least in the Central Division. So you're going to play in a lot of the Central Division teams for both the American and the National League. So yeah, it's going to be a fun season. If they get through the season, they're already having issues with Miami and what's the other one? Philadelphia.
I haven't been following it at all, to be honest.
Yeah. So let's see here. My buddy Ron, we said hi to you already. Y'all Apple guys. Yeah, Ken, we are Apple guys. I mean, we both have iPhones. We have Apple Watches.
I don't have an Apple Watch.
Well, I've got a Mac. I got a couple Macs here. I got my AirPods.
Rich is more of he's more extreme Mac. I have right now. I have the iPhone and I have the MacBook Pro. The reason why I have the MacBook Pro because it's phenomenal editing video. So and it's great to do a lot of those things. With photography and video, it certainly works a little bit better than Windows-based operating systems, but I do have Windows here too. So
I've got a Windows computer, and I have the Intel NUC. And by the way, if you're looking for an inexpensive Windows computer, I love my Intel NUCs. So they're relatively inexpensive, and you buy the kit, and then you put the RAM and the hard drive or SSD in them, and set that all up yourself. So if you don't mind doing a little bit of work, it's a great thing. And let's see here. And there's another thing, too, is you can share your mouse and keyboard, which I have the two computers on my desk, separate monitors, and I just use one mouse and keyboard.
That's really cool.
Yeah. All righty. So amen on the Facebook. Yeah, we don't like Facebook. Yeah, we like Facebook, but our system is much better on YouTube. Pat is checking in from Pineville, Louisiana.
I haven't been in Louisiana either, so I need to travel more.
I've never been to Louisiana, but I've been to Louisiana. So it's a pronunciation thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Missouri. People. Some people say Missouri, other people say Missouri. So it's Louisiana or Louisiana. So my mom always said it was Louisiana. Of course, she was from the South, so it's probably I trust her on that. All righty. So Joe asks how much a repeater tower costs. So he's got some big towers over there near the River Parkway, and they're huge towers for repeaters and cell phones. So they can be very expensive.
Yeah, I don't know what. So at our first location, in Holliston, we actually had a 40-foot I believe it was 40-foot tower in the back of it, the back of the building. And I don't know how much Rich spent on that, but I'm sure it was a pretty penny.
Yeah.
They had to put in a cement. It was self-standing, so they put in a cement footing down in the bottom, and then it just assembled all together. I mean, it was phenomenal. I think Rich, he definitely wanted it, and he got it.
Yeah. Well, 25 years or so ago, I was in charge of a project where we put in a new radio tower, put a 110-foot self monopole in the back of the police station to replace the old one. And I'm thinking that was about $180,000, $200,000 for the tower itself, and probably about $15,000 for the cement base. Of course, that cement base was, as big around as a Volkswagen, to support that tower. Yeah, so that was big. So that whole project was probably around $250,000 for the tower, another, 20 or 30,000 for the antennas, and probably twice as much as that for the coax. The nice thing about it is it was all free to us. It was all paid for by one of the cellular companies who wanted to put their cellular equipment at our location. We said, yeah, sure, as long as you build us a new tower, because we were building a new police station. We had to take the old tower down anyway, and it worked out great for us, worked out great for them. So so you'll see it a lot. A lot of times you'll see a cellular antenna on a police tower or vice versa. They cooperate, and if they can each save some money that way, that's a great thing, and less tower blight. So Todd still has a bunch of police call CD-ROMs.
I remember those.
Yeah. I've got a couple of them laying around here someplace. So Joe thanks us. Glad you're doing better, Joe. And another Joe telling us that CB was 3x4 in the 60s. It means 3 letters, 4 numbers. And then they went to 4 letters, 4 numbers, probably in the 70s by the time I got my license. And then they just got rid of licenses altogether. Mets were winning 3-2, and that was 35, 40 minutes ago. Yeah, look at Aiken County for the FRS channels on the fire. That's going to be interesting. Yeah, the NFL is using DMR encryption. I was watching a video the other day, and the guy that used to announce for the Dodgers, I forget his name now, most famous announcer there ever was, just retired a couple years ago. And he was telling the story how the phones between the Dodgers bullpen, the Dodgers club dugout, and the bullpen wasn't working. So they used walkie-talkies. And the other team found walkie-talkie on the same frequency. And where Dodgers say, okay, get Smith up and into the bullpen. And then the other guys would get on there, same thing. Yeah, get Jones going. And they were messing with each other on the.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So walkie-talkies were not a good thing on a competitive thing. If you're not using encryption.
Yeah, or at least using some sort of PL tone structure, DPL.
Yeah.
I mean, you need somebody with a scanner in order to work that out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Todd picked up his new iPhone. I'm waiting on the iPhone 12. My phone's paid off, so I'll probably get the new iPhone 12 when they come out. Lincoln's been scanning in San Diego since 1971. That's pretty close to the time I started. So he's been around a while. Lincoln must be, as we call him, vintage. So Joe says the towers typically cost $50,000 and up, all the way up into the millions, for some of the several 100-foot self-supporting ones. Yeah, absolutely. Depending on how big towers are, what stuff is on there, and probably most importantly, the cost of the real estate. That all factors into the towers. So if you put in a 300-foot self-supporting tower with a bunch of stuff on it, out in a cow pasture someplace, it might cost you $100,000, but you put that same tower in Lower Manhattan, and that's going to cost you several $1 million. So And let's Vince Gully. Thank you, Lincoln. Appreciate it. Vince Gully. Yeah, and like I say, he did that. He did that bit about the walkie talkies, and it was a great bit. All righty, and he was I didn't like the Dodgers because of course I'm a Cubs fan, but I always loved listening to him. So all right, well, and Les is saying goodnight to us from Toronto area, Tobiki. So
good night if you already haven't left.
And that is the end of the comments as we have them.
Did you miss some?
Oh, I think I skipped a couple duplicates. I might have, maybe.
Yeah, let me just.
It looks like I did. Yeah.
Yeah, I just. Yeah, Carmen mentions about a taxi stand that's near him that's using encryption, which is.
That's where I lost it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was that derailment. Did you see that? And Rick B reporting that Templeton Town Lake train derailment this morning on the trestle.
Yeah. So Tempe is about 75, 80 miles from where I live, and it's if you're familiar with the Phoenix area, where this train derailment was just east of the airport by a couple miles, and directly off the runway at the airport. So just south and east of downtown Phoenix. And there is a former Southern Pacific, currently it's Union Pacific, bridge that goes over the Tempe Town Lake, which is a reservoir out there. And, there's people who ride boats and stuff on here. And the train was apparently going across the bridge, and I'm assuming that it derailed either on or just off the edge of the bridge. And part of the bridge collapsed over a roadway, not over the lake, but over the roadway. And there were several cars of lumber that started on fire, and the entire bridge, the bridge deck itself, which is all wooden cross ties, soaked with creosote. So once those things get burning, it's hard to put out. And it was right during morning rush hour. And so I had it on one of the screens here watching the helicopter live shot. And it's going to be a mess there for a long time. And if you're familiar with the railroad situation in Phoenix is a huge city, but it's a new city. And there were two railroads that came into Phoenix. You got the Santa Fe line, which is now the BNSF, that comes in from the northwest, and the Southern Pacific, which is now the Union Pacific, that came up from the southeast, or from the southwest, and then went into Phoenix and then went back again to the southwest. And basically it was at the end of two branch lines. It wasn't even the main line. And years ago, they abandoned the line west of Phoenix so that the only way the Union Pacific gets into town was out of Tucson, and they come up that way. Well, now that bridge is between downtown Phoenix and the rest of the world for the UP. So that's going to mess up the Union Pacific in the Phoenix area for a long time. So they're going to reroute trains over the BNSF. But it was a fascinating view on the helicopters. Unfortunately, I was too far away to be able to hear a lot of that stuff on the radio. Again, it's 75, 80 miles away from me. And let's see here. Don, our buddy from Bermuda. So I'm glad you got your T-shirt thing figured out, Don. We were helping him out with that. So,
just want to remind everybody, Rich and I are actually thinking about doing a secondary show on a different set of social media. As you can tell, that we're well versed in rail fanning and everything related to trains. And this is a program that we're looking at launching hopefully in August. If you haven't already, and if you're a rail fan, definitely subscribe to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And also, I got to add the YouTube icon there as well. We're going to do a similar program on the Train Aficionado social media. More than likely, it'll be a simulcast on YouTube and Facebook. All about rail fanning, with various topics. So if you guys that are watching now that are interested, make sure you hit up all those socials and like and follow and subscribe. we're actually excited about doing this. It'll be like almost like a spin-off of what we do here at the Scanner Guys, but it'll be strictly rail fanning and trains and things like that. And we plan on doing those shows once a month on those particular social media channels. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll have more on that soon. And because we could talk about it every week, but we would bore everybody that's not a rail fan in our audience. So this is going to be cool stuff coming up. So definitely follow, like, and subscribe for more details on the Train Aficionado social media. But
absolutely.
But that was interesting. I saw everybody posting. I belong to so many groups. I was seeing all the helicopter. I wasn't able to watch it, but I was seeing it.
Oh yeah. Well, I had 10 or 15 people get a hold of me on Messenger and Facebook and stuff like that. Say, hey, watch the news. Or, they wrecked up there, and that was extremely dramatic shots from the helicopter out there. So, and I understand I had to cut away from it for a while, but I understand they had a fireboat that they trucked in from one of the lakes up north. They trucked in to that lake so they could draft water out of the lake and try to put that fire out. It may still be burning for all I know.
Yeah.
All right. So the bag phone comment was for you. So the mail bag was on your cell phone. So that's why he asked if you had a bag phone.
Yeah.
So, again, I missed a bunch of these comments. I must have skipped ahead and missed a bunch. So sorry about that, guys. Let's see here. UHF T-band, it's because TV channel 14 starts at 470. That's why they call it the T-band, because it was recovered from television stations. Let's see here. Buddy Jay from Papillon. Radios. So Ron, my buddy from Michigan, says that the state of Utah has contracted with Harris to build a statewide P25 Phase 2 trunk system. So to replace the older Motorola system that's still currently in use. So, so if you've got an analog scanner in Utah, its days may be coming to an end. Obviously, these big wide area systems take a couple of years to put together. So you still got some use now, but you might want to start saving up for a digital scanner if you don't have one already. Dave is running late, but he's here. So Dave, feel free to play the rerun. So Midwest Fire Department is his username. He's got a 996P XT that he uses for a feed on RadioReference with text tag. He wants to switch to a P20 996P2, but the text tagging won't work. So when I used to have my feed with text tags, I had the serial cable plugged into the rear of the radio. You might, instead of, and he's probably using the front serial port on his 996. If there's a way you can connect to the back serial port, you might still be able to use your 996P2 for text tagging. I don't know. I've never used the P2 for text for feeds, but that's the way I did it. I actually plugged into the rear serial port of the computer.
Yeah, we had
the radio.
The custom cable that we sold for a little while that had the serial on one end, USB on the other. I used that for the when I had the Northeast Corridor feed up in Massachusetts. And I love that because it would just, it was on the rear of the radio and it was out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. So, try that. I don't know if it'll work, but maybe somebody else will. So if they'll post it on there, you can try that. Also, there is a feeds forum at RadioReference. So if anybody knows, somebody will know for sure there. So, so Dave was going to think about bringing his scanner to a Buffalo Bills football game, but security does not allow any type of radios. So, remember that stadiums are either privately owned or privately leased. So the teams can set rules, even if it's publicly owned stadium, the teams can set rules of what you can bring in. So a lot of them won't allow a scanner. And if you do get a scanner in there, use headphones. Number one, you're not going to be able to hear it without it. And number two, just you want to keep a kind of a low profile. Number three, you don't want to bother people sitting near you. Of course,
Yeah,
I don't think you'll be having people sitting near you for a while.
and you don't want to draw attention to yourself and then get yourself kicked out.
Yeah, exactly. So he hasn't tried bringing it to an NHL game. So I don't know. Again, it's, when I'm going to a game, I usually don't even bother bringing the scanner. Although I did bring a scanner to a Cubs game once, but that's when I was going to 10 or 15 games a year, and I brought it a couple times, and I never had a problem back then. But security's a little tighter these days.
Mhm.
So Alicia says that Radio Shack is still doing business online. So yeah, there is still some Radio Shacks, and then Todd says there's still Radio Shack in Sioux Falls, but it's a mom and pop type store. So Radio Shack is not entirely dead. There are a few Radio Shack stores left in the country. These are usually franchised places. They're not Radio Shack owned stores. These are Bill's Hardware and Radio Shack, or Bill's Tackle and Bait Shop and Radio Shack. So
it reminds me of a Radio Shack that my dad and I have visited. I'm sure it's long gone now. It was in a part of a furniture store. It was in Belfast, Maine. I'm sure he remembers that. It was towards the back of the store. They had the glass, case, and they had radio there and some other things that Radio Shack carried. But yeah, just like you said, it's an odd pairing of we
had the same thing when I was a kid growing up. The town I lived in was in the suburbs, and we had a real Radio Shack store in town, and we used to ride our bikes there when I was a kid. But you go up into the country, like where my grandmother lived, they had it was literally a bait and tackle shop, and the guy was a Radio Shack dealer, and he sold some Radio Shack stuff, but it was such a small town that was the only place you can get that kind of thing. And those type places are still around, and I've been to a few of them. And apparently they still have some sort of a web presence. So a show idea for your train blog: history of trains and national parks.
Yeah, I know there's a connection there. So that's certainly we could dive into that. Should we tease something that we want to do with the show, for our audience right now? Actually, we could see a box behind you during the last broadcast. Rich, tell us a little bit about that.
The box behind me?
During the last broadcast, where you had to send it off? The slide?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
because I remember, it was in the chair behind you.
Yeah. So if you remember from the last broadcast, there was this big, huge white box on the chair behind me. And I was waiting on getting that sent out. Back in the 70s, back in the 80s and early 90s, I was shooting slide film. And I had approximately 10,000 slides that I had taken, pictures that I had taken over the years. And they've been basically sitting in a box or a couple boxes at home that I've schlepped between houses and stuff. And I finally got around to sending them in to get scanned. And so I sent them in. They arrived today. I just got notified that they had arrived today. And they are going to scan them and then send me a hard drive with all those pictures on them, and then send my slides back to me, of course. So I will have roughly 10,000 high quality scans of my mostly railroads, but some aviation and other stuff on there. I'll have to make sure there's no pictures of my ex-girlfriends on there so that my wife looks through it. But you never know. But yeah, I'm going to get those back. And then we are talking about maybe doing our Railfan show of have a segment of Rich's travels.
Yeah, I mean, that should be really cool because you were able to see a lot of things in that period of time where you did a lot of traveling. I mean, there's so many cool stories too that when you went rail fanning, I mean, just to give a little tease about it, there was trips when you were working, working for the police department that when you took vacation time, you literally went rail fanning.
Yeah.
And
I had a flexible schedule, so I would work like 20 days in a row, and then take off 10 days to go rail fanning. And spent a lot of time doing that, and took lots of pictures and went to a lot of places. I've been to 49 states rail fanning. The only state I haven't been to is Hawaii, and there's never been any rails there since I've been alive. There were railroads there in the past, but not since I've been alive.
I think they do have, or they're in the process of some sort of rapid transit type of thing. So technically, now there's some. But I mean, at least it's something. But I'm sure there was. I mean, that would be interesting to dive into the history. Like even Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard had railroad lines on those islands. For those people that are in Massachusetts. Yeah,
and they had railroads all the way up to the top of the Cape Cod. So at one point, but and I've been to, like I said, I've been to 49 states. I've been to all 10 provinces, plus the Northwest Territories and the Yukon. And rail fanning most of the time, or highway checking. But that'll be one of our segments, and we'll take Rich's trip to Marquette, Michigan this week, and then the next one might be a trip to Horseshoe Curve, or then the other time out to Sandpoint, Idaho, or something like that.
Yeah, so it'll be a lot of fun. We're actually looking forward to the spinoff of the Scanner Guys.
The rail fan guys.
Yeah.
So, okay. So going back to the comments here, Jerry, my buddy Jerry from Chicago, said Fry's was nice. If you couldn't find a part at Radio Shack, there was a good chance you could find it at Fry's. But like I say, unfortunately, these days, I don't know. Hopefully, they'll get things straightened out and get back to the way they once were. It used to be a great place to go. So Joe says his code test was at the FCC field office, and I probably went through the VEC program. So I did. I actually went through the volunteer exam coordinator program, is what VEC stands for. I had to think about that for a minute. Where it was a ham of a certain license class was allowed to proffer the tests. And that's what I did. I went through a ham radio club. I do remember the first time I took my ham license was at an FCC field office, but I failed the test.
Oh, jeez.
I didn't study. I just, but that was a million years ago. So, okay. So Beaufort, South Carolina, and Beaufort, North Carolina.
And isn't that amazing? They're spelled exactly the same, but they're pronounced entirely different.
Yep, absolutely. So, and you can always tell people from Chicago because they pronounce it Chicago. It's not Chicago, it's Chicago. So you can always tell natives that know how to pronounce it right. Let's see here. Okay, now I caught up to those notes. So let me go down to the bottom again and find out where I left track. Okay, here we go. So Mike is still waiting for his SDS 100. Mike is the guy from Mississauga who had some problems with his SDS and had some problems getting it fixed. So he's still waiting on that. I'm sure unit and repairers have been having the same issues that a lot of places have. They may be short personnel. People work from home, can't do radio repairs.
A cool thing about the Michael that you're mentioning, I can't view all the comments on YouTube mobile. Well, the great thing about we're actually simulcasting on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So Rich and I are probably reading some of the comments that you're not seeing that are from our Facebook audience. So that's why some of you are saying, where's this question that Rich is reading? Because it's on the other platform that you're not on. We're able to see the cool thing about our studio software is we're able to see it all joined. This is beautiful compared to what we used to do when we were simulcasting. I mean, we're able to see everything all together and it's in order. But that's probably why you're probably saying, where's that question? Where's that question? Because it's on the other platform.
What I used to have to do is I used to have to copy and paste the comments from Facebook into a Word document because it only held X amount of comments. So, and then the older comments would start disappearing. So by the time we were done with the main first part of the show, the comments, half the comments were gone already. So throughout the whole show, I'm copying and pasting them from Facebook onto a Word document. And so now I don't have to do that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's the amazing things. I'm at Master Control, so I'm selecting shots here. Running the slideshow, and Rich is copying. We're both doing multiple tasks at once.
Yeah, good thing we're both good multitaskers.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So CB Ben is a show topic idea, and I like this one. Compare the scanning system state by state. Easiest states to scan and the most difficult. Who's using a lot of encryption or trunking? And then state scanner laws. Yeah.
You know what? Let's see here. We already have next week.
So August 11th, maybe.
Let's see here. No, let's see. So that would be the 5th. Then we have Phil on the 12th, maybe the 19th.
Okay.
So we definitely that's a real interesting thing to kind of compare up state to states, the easiest to difficult. I mean, we could even say what state is more friendly towards conventional. There's believe it or not, there's a few states out there that are still friendly to conventional. Most of them have gone to trunking. There's one particular state I can think of right off the top of my head that's mostly all still conventional. Can you thinking of it, Rich, or you're?
Well, I can think of one.
New England state?
No. I'm talking about the one I live in. The
How about
state
New
police.
England state?
Well, they're still using probably Vermont.
Yep. That's it. Conventional, mostly all conventional. You got your state level, you've got your county level and local level. Most of it's all conventional. State of Maine used to be until they got that outside of Portland, Maine was one of the primary public safety, had trunking. Outside of that, that whole state was conventional. And then, of course, the Maine State Police got that trunking system. So that kind of changed things there. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to say Vermont.
Yeah, I had to think about that a little bit. So, see, we spent so much time in the RadioReference database that you start remembering these things. And nowadays, a lot of times people call and they'll give me some little town out in the middle of nowhere, and I say, they're on this. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you spend 5 years of doing nothing but answering those type of questions, you get it figured out.
That is really, I like that topic. That is really good.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ben. That was a great topic. Thank you very much. And we will do that. All right. So Joel says that town in Ontario is pronounced Etobicoke. Etobicoke. Okay. Etobicoke. All right. So, the next comment there, Etobicoke.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I really don't want to forget this, so I'm actually going to.
Yeah, I copied and pasted it already.
You got it? All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I'm not able to copy and paste it on this screen, so you got it. Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
All right. So, so about the only Apple thing I don't have is apple pie.
Do you like apple pie?
I like cherry pie.
Me too. Cherry pie. Do you like it with the crumbed crust or the regular crust?
Regular crust.
Okay.
Regular crust. And my wife, when she makes the cherry pie, she takes powdered sugar and spreads it on the top while it's still hot. Ooh. So it stays on there. Oh, so good.
So does she make it from scratch or?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Nothing from a can. No.
Okay. So ice cream. Do you do ice cream with it warmed up?
Yep. Yeah, we microwave the pie for 30 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is, and then put some ice cream on it just where it starts melting it a little bit. And it's got to be vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, like something like a vanilla. If you want to go fancy, vanilla bean.
Yeah, or I like French vanilla. So.
Yep, that is another fancy one too.
Yep. Yeah, so the scanner guys and ice cream and dessert guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I missed dessert about a year ago. So I'm a man of size, as they say these days.
Yes.
All right. So Louisiana is the best state in the nation. I will take your word for it. I've been there a few times. It's an interesting place, that's for sure. All right. Tell me, how many states in the country do not have counties?
Louisiana's has parishes.
Right. And there's one more state that doesn't have counties. North to Alaska.
Oh, Alaska?
Yeah, they have boroughs.
Boroughs, okay.
Yeah. So they're all in operation. They're basically counties, but yeah, they.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Louisiana. Anytime I looked up anything there, it was always parish. What parish are you in? And
That's
people
right.
were super like when I got calls from people from Louisiana, I would automatically say, "What parish are you in?" And they were like, "Oh my God, it's a parish."
Yep.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yep. And like I said, we do this all day long, and we pick things up once in a while.
Yep.
So let's see here. So Chris has got a YouTube show about GMRS. So if you want to check that out, you can. Sundays at 8. So if you have GMRS and want to learn how that works, that's a place to check. So Joe said that was a great idea. Yep. Yeah. All right. So we could also spend on our Railfan show of what these abbreviations for these Railfans really mean. So better not send freight. I always thought it meant buy Norfolk Southern fast. So the CNW is the cheap and nothing wasted. And there's a lot of good ones. So let's see. John says good night, and Ray says the blue line is crazy on scanners. Yeah, there's scanners are kind of a mixed bag these days, especially on some of these websites, because some of these idiots that are causing disruptions are using scanners, and that's not a good thing. So Dave is looking forward to our train show. He lives close to the Transcon, the BNSF Transcon in Olathe, Kansas. And massive gas line explosion in Houston. Or if you were in Georgia, they would be calling that Houston. But I assume this was in Texas, so it'd be Houston. And that's another good. I was talking to a lady yesterday, and she was from Houston, Georgia. And I said, oh, yeah, I know that. So Boston was up 6-3.
Oh, that's getting close to we're almost in the danger zone for reporting it live. So
yeah, it's 20 minutes ago, so I guess we're all right. So Chris lived for 20 years on Nantucket before moving to South Carolina. The railroad was there to sell real estate at the far end of the island. So that was why a lot of railroads were built back in the day. It was to sell real estate. And I mean, even some of the big railroads out west, the way they financed it was they got a land grant from the government for X amount of miles on either side of the track. And they would be cutting alternate squares in miles. So the A squares were owned by the railroads and the B square was owned by the government. And they alternate squares so the railroad could sell their lands and the federal government can sell their lands, and they would both make enough money to build the railroad and finance the operation. So we'll talk about that on one of the railroad shows. So
I was just thinking of it just crossed my mind a good television series that aired on AMC called Hell on Wheels. When you just mentioned railroading the West, and they kind of it kind of documented connecting the East and the West. During that show, it had a story of a character in that show, and then it kind of how he evolved. It was kind of an interesting thing there, and then it was people fighting over where to put the stops, because they had you had these rich investors that wanted a station stop where they owned land so they could reap the benefits of a station bringing people to that community.
People would buy land on speculation, thinking the railroad's going to go through there, and if they did, they become rich. And if the railroad built elsewhere, they'd be poor.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe P, we got a lot of Joes, so we got to be careful of those, ordered a shirt and another SDS slim battery. So, we talked about this last week. We got in a bunch of the small batteries for the SDS 100s. So we had those. I'm checking right now to make sure we still have them. And we do. So we still have a few of the small batteries for the SDS 100, and that includes the battery door for the back of the radio. So you can use the slimline battery. It won't last as long as the full-size battery, but it will make the radio that much slimmer. So there you go. And that is the small battery and the small battery door. And how much is that? Is $79.95. And like I say, it includes the battery and the door.
Boy, our team,
we are the only ones that have it. Yeah.
And our team in the control room is on top of it. They're on fire tonight.
Yeah, they are. So we have to give props to our engineer. So.
And that was on a totally different slideshow, and I was able to pull it up.
That's why you're doing it, not me. So
I need to go back to the other one now.
Yeah,
it's easy.
So
give it up.
Yeah. All right. So Mike says, thanks for clearing that up. Makes more sense. So he's like, why he can't set a reminder. So I have the same problem you have, Mike, and I don't know why that's happening. So when I try to set a reminder, it says the action is turned off for content made for kids. But other people, it's working. So
I don't know.
It's a weird YouTube thing.
It could be settings, for your settings. I have no. I mean, we broadcast on this platform. We don't know all the ins and outs of it. Clearly, we're not YouTube engineers by any means.
Yeah. Joe asks if any trains use satellite communications. So they use GPS for sure, and they use data. A lot of trains these days are using data connections for PTC. Positive train control, and sometimes they're using cellular data, but usually they're using satellite data for that because a lot of times, especially out west, the trains go where there is no cellular service.
And you'll see along a lot of CSX lines, you'll see Verizon dishes. Mm-hmm. So they're using some of that for communication and whatever it may be.
Yeah. So nowadays, railroads used to have. Well, the railroads and locomotives used to have one antenna sticking off the roof of the locomotive. It usually looked like an upside down hockey blade, for a lower clearance. And it was that was it. They had a VHF radio in the cab. Nowadays, they've got this huge, and I'm talking huge. It's probably 2 feet across. It's called a radome, and basically it's an entire array of antennas under a common cover. And there might be, 10 or 15 different antennas inside this thing to connect to the EOT, the end of train device, the data uplinks for PTC, obviously the VHF communications. There's cellular data for for other stuff. There's GPS receivers. There might be multiple GPS receivers for different things for the PTC. They've got a lot of locomotives now have dash cams, and they have GPS, so they can indicate the location of where the incident was on the dash cam. It's a fancy dash cam, but same thing as that you would see in a police car. In fact, same technology. So tons and tons of different types of connectivity on the locomotive. And then there's a follow-up question on that from Jim. Hear anything about CSX giving employees tablets? So airlines have been doing that for several years. A lot of airlines, instead of giving them paper materials for things like charts and stuff like that, they give them an iPad. and they have a special app on the iPad that has all the airport charts on them and all the approach charts and departure charts and stuff. So instead of having a big book and paging through stuff, they go on there and say, okay, I'm flying from Phoenix to O'Hare. All right, I need the approach chart for O'Hare. Boom, boom. They know where the approaches are. It's only a matter of time before the railroads probably did that as well. So, and are any railroads still using PBX? There's a few PBX things still out here in the Phoenix area and Southern California. The Arizona, California has a PBX system that they still use occasionally. But again, they operate in places where there's not very good cell coverage. And most PBX operations these days would probably be more for maintenance away crews. But there are, everybody's got cell phones, so you're not going to hear them in the cities anymore. The only places you might hear is going to be pretty much out in the country where there might not be cell phone coverage, like in the mountains and such. And let's see here. How long before the manufacturers start putting GPS inside their scanners? Say again?
A good question.
Yeah. Uniden is the only manufacturer that utilizes GPS in the scanners. And they sell an external GPS. There are a couple of guys that have retrofitted existing scanners with internal GPS. There's a couple reasons why they don't come in the scanners. Number one is coverage. With GPS, you're trying to get connected to satellites, and your handheld scanner or your mobile scanner in the car may not be capable of seeing the satellites. And you would need to have an external device anyway. So, plus, why should I pay for a GPS when I'm not using GPS? But you're using GPS, so you buy the GPS accessory. So, there's a few reasons, technical and financial, why they're not doing that now. It's possible they could do it in the future, but I wouldn't bet the farm on that. Let's see here. And internal GPS, great show. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. So Chris got some questions. So if we don't get your questions, Chris, we will be free to feel free to send those to support@scannermaster.com, and we will get your questions answered there as quickly as possible. We do check that about once a day, so we'll get to it as soon as we can. So Watson is having a good time.
Yeah, it's just got to be a dog on the TV.
Yeah. So funny thing about it is I can hear your dogs barking, but you can't.
Oh, I can hear them. I can.
Oh, yeah?
My headphones are not that concealing for the.
Okay.
So yeah, he's on Instagram, by the way.
A couple quick questions here. Jeff says, "Is there any a good list of train detectors in Illinois?" You can check for websites for that, or if you get a hold of the current timetables for the railroads involved, they will often issue they will list the detectors. There's a company called SPV who makes things called the Railroad Atlases. The problem is they're only updated about once every 10 years. That lists where the detectors are, but that's where they were years ago, so they may not be anywhere near up to date. If you can get a hold of the timetables, check some Railfan websites. They might list them as well. And it looks like the Montana Rail Link in Montana, Dale says still uses PBX. And and then Joe says, look for a website. So check check the web, and you might be able to find a good place where you can get detectors. So if you're not familiar, a detector is a device that automatically checks for defects like a hot axle, out of range equipment, high or wide clearances, rock slides, dragging equipment underneath the train and stuff.
Overheights.
Yeah, overheights, all kinds of different things.
load balance.
Yep. And when it
I could go on and on about this.
Oh yeah, and some of them, most of them, when it's checking your train, it'll put a radio message out on the road channel, and it'll say, CSX detector milepost 123.4, no defects, train speed 24 miles per hour, temperature 17 degrees, all that kind of stuff. And different railroads have different. Say again?
And detector out.
Yeah, detector out. And it's all recorded, digitally recorded voice. Now, not all detectors go out over the radio, but these days most of them do. And different railroads have different protocols. They almost always go out on the current road channel. They transmit 5 to 10, 15 watts, sometimes with directional antennas. Some railroads will record that on their recording system. And sometimes those detectors are connected to the dispatcher, so the dispatcher will know about it, but not always. But we can, like I say, we can spend an entire show on detectors. So let's see. Ben writes that CB capabilities are common in ham radio handhelds. There's no reason why GPS couldn't include in scanners. Yeah, it probably could be, but it may not work particularly well for mobile scanners installed in a vehicle. You're still going to need an outside GPS antenna. And again, it would cost more money. So let's see here. Do we know anything about? I'm not sure about that. And what Bluetooth dongle do you use for a headset jack? So scanners don't have Bluetooth built into them. That's another feature that people are talking about. Mm-hmm. But they do have headphone jacks right there at the top. So you can go to Best Buy or Amazon or eBay, places like that, and find little dongles that plug into your headphone jack. And they have a little built-in battery that charges by USB. And then you can connect the Bluetooth to your phone or to your AirPods or your GPS or your Bluetooth speaker. There are different things you can connect to. So there are ways to connect Bluetooth to your scanner that doesn't have Bluetooth built in, and that's by using one of these dongles. I used to have one, but since the battery died on it, couldn't charge it anymore. So I don't have one now, but I've used it in the past. It worked fine. I just don't have a need for it right now. So that looks to be about the end of the comments section, and we're a little over 2.5 hours, so we're doing good.
So we'll definitely wrap up things here for this evening. We just wanted to remind you, if you haven't already, for the news on the upcoming spin-off to the Scanner Guys. You can see that, updates on that on the Train Aficionado social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and YouTube, which is not listed there. It's Train Aficionado on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and then on Twitter, it's Rail Aficionado. And then let's not forget this evening to follow, like, and subscribe to Scanner Master on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and as well as the Scanner Guys social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. So make sure you follow, like, and do that as well there. So oh yeah, look at this. Can't wait for that Homer show.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have a lot of fun talking about that stuff as well. We just want to thank you. Our shows have been getting a little bit longer, I guess, because of popularity, I'm guessing. We appreciate you guys hanging in there. It's like a big family for us now that we're building here, and we've got our regular check-ins. It's so nice to be able to have you guys each and every week. We appreciate every one of you for joining us, making the show what it is. I mean, certainly contributing to show ideas just by posting in the comments or just sharing information. Where we may have some of the information and you're able to fill in the information for someone locally or whatever it may be, we appreciate it. So,
yeah. And we don't always know the answer to every question. That's why we watch the comments. And then, so like I said, the first half of the Scanner show, we do our presentation and then go through the comments, and sometimes it takes longer.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it. So we've got some good shows lined up. Looks like the next three. Look at this, Rich. Sometimes we're coming up. The week before.
Mm-hmm.
We've got now 3 shows worth of topics. So we've got some digital types of systems we're going to talk about. We're going to cover DMR, NextEdge, ProVoice, and P25. And then the following week, we have a guest, which is Phil from the Scanner School. So that'll be good. And then we've got that really cool topic, which is scanner friendly, what state is scanner friendly, which is, we're going to be able to do all sorts of fun stuff for that.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Maybe we may make some maps and graphs and stuff too. So
so that'll be really cool. But I think that'll wrap it up for us. Do you have anything else for us, Rich? Or what do you want?
No,
5?
I think
Bottle number 5?
this is almost done with bottle number 5. So
do you have a number 6?
No, I don't. I'd have to get up and go back in the other room for it. So
all right. So we better wrap up things before
I got big hands, but I can only hold about 5 at a time.
We better wrap up things for 2 reasons. Rich is almost out of water, and he's probably going to have to make water right after the podcast. So without further,
I've got a bunch of empty bottles I could use for that. So
I think the microphone might pick up the audio of that.
Yeah, that could be.
So anyways, I'm Jonathan Higgins.
And I'm Rich Carlson.
We'll catch you again next week right here.
Yeah, the Scanner Guys.
Have a good night.